Sup, Reitanna, it's Reitanna Seishin here. I'm gonna have 2 entries because the first one is extremely short. It's called The Family of Siren Heads. Some siren heads appeared in my dreams a few nights ago. I was with the alternate version of Dib I haven't explained on here yet, and as an attempt to distract him, I pointed out to some mountains and said, "Hey look, it's Siren Head!" He looked, and an actual siren head walked by, which shocked me. Then a second one followed, and then 2 smaller ones, and I said, a family of siren heads. The bigger ones were a mother and father of the 2 others, who were a young boy and girl. How did I know? The son was wearing a baseball cap, and the daughter was wearing a pink, modest, collared dress. So, the follow-up to that would be... Here's one of my much-needed explanations of a fictional projection. This is an alternate universe version of Dib from Invader Zim. Okay. I know I wrote a blog about dream projections who are real people. I need to update the worst at some point, which was, Ariel. There are many projections I see that are not real people, and I really need to elaborate on them, especially Vegeta, but that's not for today. Note, this blog entry involves sexual themes. Please do not read further unless you are prepared. No, it does not include sexual abuse, but it does involve borderline grooming. So, Dib. From Invader Zim. Nerdy, big-headed, kind of insane kid? Nope. This is not canon Dib. He is not a kid. He's not even the Dib from the episode Dib's Wonderful Life. I've seen Playing with Fire Dib a few times, but this guy, this Dib is diff. I met him at a carnival. He's around my age, maybe older. He has attractive glasses, longer black hair that's styled way different, and he himself is unbelievably sexy. I didn't even know he was Dib until I asked him his name, and I was shocked. He looked out of place at the colorful Smilesvillian carnival, wearing all black and looking like he just came from a semi-formal event. And I didn't see him in, an Invader Zim drawing style either. He was a real person. And, the picture that you see, on this entry is as close to what I can make him look like as possible. It's worth reminding you long-time... Okay, I said it's worth reminding you long-time readers of this blog that I have powers. Also, even after Vegeta gave me a sensu bean to heal all of the damage that Randy and many accidents have caused me, I ended up getting injured again, mainly in my legs. I have more control over my flying thanks to Goku and Vegeta's training, so I mainly float, especially when my legs are hurting. I think this stems from the fact that I can't walk in real life when I'm fat. However, even though I am still around 160 pounds, it's going rather slowly right now because I needed comfort food, after Gemini passed. I have still been exercising, and that's strengthened my legs enough so that I can walk, save for my torn tendon, which has nothing to do with my weight. So I can walk now, which is good. It feels nice. I just wish it wasn't so goddamn hot, because then I could get more and better exercise by walking outside with Michael to go places. But no, the earth has to be on fire! Okay. Dib, being the scientist and paranormal investigator he is, was intrigued by my powers. I told him about my legs, and he said he could help me. I trusted him because I felt like I knew him, watching the show religiously for years. Plus, in my dreams, I'm so horny, I'm willing to do almost anything a sexy person tells me to do, man, woman, or other genders. It's because my weight and depression in real life kills my libido. It's lucky my relationship with Michael isn't based on sex, because we haven't done it for over a year, so my sexual frustration comes out in my dreams. I got in Dib's sleek black car, and he drove me to his home where his lab was. On the way, I told him about my powers, which ones I had, and how I couldn't always control them, or they don't even work sometimes. I made him much more interested in me. It made him much more interested in me. Something I noticed was that he was much more laid back, cool, and collected than any other version of Dib I had seen. He was smooth talking with a deep voice that was on the edge of seductive. I was as intrigued by him as he was of me. We got to his house, which was weirdly quiet and empty. It was also the kind of clean a hotel room is before a guest arrives. I asked him whatever happened to Zim, and he didn't answer right away, but instead took me underground to his lab. Well, I found Zim there. This Zim was also shockingly different. He was Dib's slave. Not a sex slave, a work slave. He was taller, not in a disguise, and looked exhausted. He was also so submissive, it was like all of his pride and confidence in him had been removed completely. Gur was there too, but he had been fixed, and his voice had been removed. Gur was Zim's beloved best friend, like a little brother, and they were both working on something for Dib, silent and emotionless. That's when I started to feel a small bit of discomfort. Dib didn't address the alien or the robot, but took me to sit on the table as he examined my legs. He was more touchy than was necessary. Then he hooked up some nodes to them, ran a bunch of tests on machines I didn't recognize, nodded at the results, and started to work on something while asking me questions about my life. I told him about my dream world life, and then my real world life. I wasn't sure if he was actually listening, but eventually he removed my shoes and socks and replaced them with these robotic boots. He told me they'd help me walk, run, jump, and all with strength enhancement. I tried them out, and sure enough, it was like I had brand new legs. I feel like I need brand new legs. That was it. He brought me back upstairs, gave me a business card, and told me to come back if I felt they needed adjustments. He also mentioned that he hosts parties at his house on Saturdays, and that I was welcome to come. He encouraged me to walk home to test the legs, so I did. I noticed his house was basically in the middle of nowhere, beside a grassy hill with beautiful green grass, clovers, and brightly colored flowers. The entire area was beautiful, and he had some kind of garden in his backyard. I didn't take Dib as a gardener, but then again, I had seen enough to tell me that this was an alternate version like no other. As a side note, oftentimes I've gone to this area to try and catch Pokemon, but every time I go and try to catch wild Pokemon, I don't have enough Pokeballs, and there's like this dispenser that gives you Pokeballs, but it's always either malfunctioning out or just going really slowly, or I can't find it. It sucks! I went home, running some of the way, and I was very pleased. I wanted to show Vegeta, but then I called for him, but when I called for him, he didn't show up, so he wasn't in the area. He's usually in the area to keep an eye on me and be there if I need help, but he must have had other things to do. A few weeks went by, me fighting with the urge to go see Dib again. Surely he was just being polite when inviting me to the party. He didn't actually care for me. I'd later learn that no, he did not care about me. After some time, I noticed that the boots felt sort of loose, but I couldn't see any screws. They were not supporting me like they were before. It was a Saturday, so I decided that I had an excuse to go. I put on a dress, I'll remind you that I'm actually really gorgeous and really hot in my dream world, and flew to Dib's home. It was nighttime, and when I knocked, someone I didn't know answered. When the door opened, a rush of loud sounds hit me. I had thought that Dib would host more formal parties, but this sounded and smelled like a rager. I became more nervous. The stranger turned out to be Zim in disguise, a good disguise, and he said if anybody asked, he was Dib's younger brother. He guided me through the dark house that was lit with that dangerous sort of red light you'd see in horror movies. The music was deafening, people were obviously drunk and or high on something, and there were people literally having sex in random places. I stayed close to Zim, who actually clutched my arm to keep me there. Finally, we reached Dib, and Zim carefully handed me over, as if he thought someone would jump in and grab me if he let me go on my own. Then Zim left. Dib and I had to yell to talk to each other. He told me not to eat or drink anything in case it had been spiked, which he was sure it had, and also made it clear that I should stay as close to him as possible. It became apparent why when some wasted guy came toward us and tried to get physical with me. Dib literally shoved him away. I shouted at Dib that my boots were loose, so he actually carried me over his shoulder, unnecessarily touching my backside, and took me to his room, which was empty and silent. He had some machines in there too. Really the only bedroom thing he had was a queen-size bed and a nightstand. Dib had me sit on the bed as he examined my the boots. Then he took some tools and did something to tighten them. I'm having a really bad reading day. He did a few more things, probably to ensure this didn't happen again. Then he told me to take my dress off. I questioned this, and he pointed to a small treadmill, saying he wanted to test the boots in person, and that he didn't want me to get my dress sweaty. Okay, yeah, that I assumed the sentence would say something different. I do that often. I was nervous again, but I stripped down to my bra and panties. He attached more nodes to my body, again being too touchy, and had me walk and run for a while as he observed a screen, looking at the boots every now and then. Sure enough, by the end of it, I was tired, but I reported that I had no pain. Then I asked him about his party, and he laughed. I don't partake myself, and none of them are actually my friends, even though they think they are. I let them do what they want, simply so I can observe the most idiotic of humanity. He explained that he was rich and famous for his works in science and technology, and it seemed he didn't even dabble in the paranormal, probably because in his universe paranormal things were, well, normal. I thought this was kind of a psychopathy behavior, as he showed zero empathy and full amusement. He also seemed very vain in that moment. However, he did say to me that he would keep me safe from the others in the house because I was quote-unquote different. Then he stuck my arm with a needle, and it worked instantly and I passed out. When I woke up, I was under the blanket in his bed completely naked, and he was right next to me. It wouldn't have been the first time, but still, I asked him what the hell he had done to me, but before he could say anything, a man opened the door, accompanied by a few other guys and women. "Did you do it?" he asked excitedly. Dib got out of the bed and put his boxers on. I was horrified, especially when he said yes, and they all cheered, as if he had just won an award. The man took out a camera, took a picture, and they all left. "What did you do to me?" I shouted, and Dib laughed calmly. "I didn't do anything to you," he said. "I drugged you, stripped you, put you in my bed, did some work, and then I undressed and got in with you. I didn't touch you." "How am I supposed to believe that?" I snapped. He pointed to the upper corner of the room, and there was a camera pointed at the bed. He took his phone and accessed the footage to show me what happened since I passed out, and he was telling the truth. But why? I've done this a few times. I make it seem like I'm one of them by making them think I drug and rape girls. It's very funny. Somehow, this made me angrier than if he had really done it. I got out of bed and threw my clothes back on. I started shouting again, though I don't remember everything I said. I know I accused him of being a disgusting person, but he just laughed again. "How could you have expected me to be a good person?" "Because your canon version strives to save the world," I shouted. "I'm not that person. I want to destroy the world. Why do you think I have that stupid alien?" The calm smile and the look in his eyes were absolutely terrifying. I couldn't think of anything to say. I had acted so helpless around him, so submissive, but now I wanted to burn him with my firepower. I didn't. Instead, I stormed out of the room and fought off the onslaught of partygoers trying to fondle me with some punches, electric, and ice powers. I cried as I went back home, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. Sometimes I'd go to the area where his house was, day or night, contemplating whether or not I should go see him. I think I have a hair in my mouth. Blech. My boots were doing fine, but I've noticed in my dreams that I stopped wearing them, relying more on flying. I don't know when I stopped. Sometimes I'd see Dib working in his garden, which was so surreal to me after what happened, and I saw Zim, in his disguise, playing with Gur out in front. Well, at least that was comforting. That meant that Dib gave him breaks. But it was sad to see Zim so childish. He had no maturity at all. I also saw Dib walking around every so often, and I'd try to hide. When he spotted me, he never came over to say anything. It wasn't until I gave in and went back to his house, not on a Saturday, that we spoke. I knocked, and he opened the door with a smirk, saying, "I knew you'd be back." He stood aside, and I shamefully went inside. Does that count as redundant? Aside and then inside? I don't know. I ended up witnessing how cruel Dib was to Zim, but it was clear that the alien had developed Stockholm Syndrome. Dib would mess with his mind by first being cruel, and then hand-feeding him a snack. Gur was pretty much ignored by Dib altogether. Otherwise, Dib wanted to observe my powers, though he frequently touched me in an obviously sexual way. He was scary. He was fucking scary. He was evil, and he didn't care. Everything amused him, anything cruel, everything destructive that other humans did. He drugged me a number of times just to see what would happen and how I'd act. Even though he was handsy, he didn't actually force himself on me, and honestly, I liked it when he touched me. I was developing Stockholm Syndrome of my own. We never went places together, but when we'd see each other just out and about, I'd go up and I'd hug him. When wanting to go to his house, it was still a mental battle between what was right and what I wanted. He's been angry with me a few times, especially when one of my powers went off in his garden and I destroyed some plants. He shouted at me and made me cry, which caused him to pick me up, go into his house, throw me on the couch, and practically chuck a candy bar at me. I've met Gaz a couple times. She was different too. She was an inventor of self-defense weapons. She wasn't a saint, but she wasn't nearly as bad as Dib. She didn't approve of her brother at all. She's way less apathetic and more happy, but in a "I'm a bitch and I always get what I want" way. If she liked you, you were lucky. She liked me. And then, I leave a link to the family of siren heads that I just, read to you. Remember this? Yeah, Dib was being a violent jerk again, and I wanted to get away to let him cool off. So that's when I pointed out the siren heads. It was funny. I simply pointed and said, "Look, siren head," but not thinking an actual siren head would appear, let alone a family. It was like I was partly lucid, and I willed the distraction to take form. I ended up going to Zim for a little piece, and he shared some candy with me. I am so sorry. I don't know why I'm having such a bad reading day. I don't even remember what I just read. Not thinking an actual siren head would appear, let alone a family. It was like I was partly lucid and willed the distraction to take form. I ended up going to Zim for a little piece, and he shared some candy with me. And somehow the relationship became sexual, with my consent. I don't know how he did it, but he manipulated me into giving it to him. Not Zim, Dib. And it was wonderful. He felt less like a psychopath and more of a real human being. These were the only times, though. If we weren't fooling around, he was that scary psychopath I had come to know and unwillingly desire. Though I don't remember a lot of these dreams, just bits and pieces. There was one time where he actually helped us save the world despite his beliefs and intentions. He seemed very unhappy afterward, and when I said thank you, he just went, uh-huh. The last dream I had with him was night before last. I've seen his house many times, but resisted knocking on the door. This time, I saw him near a bench, and he was feeding Zim a chocolate Swiss roll. Oh. In real life, I'm on a diet, so in dreamland, I've been devouring sweets much more enthusiastically than normal. I didn't care about Dib at the moment. I just ran up to him and said, "Can I have some?" I was reminded of how awful he is when he told me to skip around happily and sing for his amusement. Then he'd give me some. I must have been skipping and singing for like half an hour. My legs were hurting, and Dib knew it. And he laughed. Guess what? He never gave me part of the Swiss roll. Even so, I spent the day with him. Sometimes I have dreams of these battle royales, and sometimes they're virtual reality games. Other times it's real with real weapons and real death. This time, it was paintball. Curse you, Community. I guess we were watching Community at the time that I wrote this journal. So, if you know Community, you know the paintball episodes. Okay, sometimes my dream world is a totalitarian regime. We have IDs that we have to scan for everything. In order to get into the Battle Royale, we had to scan these things, but Dib didn't have his, so I saw him sneak into the area through the exit door. When I found him, I sneered, "I saw that, you naughty boy." He looked proud of himself. We were choosing weapons because it wasn't just guns. I chose a gun, but also saw a plain marker and grabbed that. I found out that the gun shot slowly, and it almost got me hit, so I gave it to Dib and pulled out the marker. We teamed up with each other, so if we ended up as the last two left, we'd have to battle each other. The marker ended up being the best weapon. You know, like video games where the stupidest thing is an amazing weapon. I just jumped at people and marked them before they could shoot me, and at close range, it was nearly impossible. It felt nice when Dib praised me for this. Except, that this is paintball and the marker didn't actually, whatever. However, we both ended up getting shot at some point, so we left. But it was fun, and I think Dib was actually feeling happiness not caused by someone else's suffering or stupidity. We ended up hiding somewhere and getting very intimate, and then it was time to part ways. Other than the skipping thing, he didn't mistreat me at all and actually gave me some gummy bears. But the Swiss roll would have been so much better. I don't really remember how the dream went from that point until I woke up. I remember thinking Michael and Vegeta will be so pissed if they find out I'm cheating on them. But that's all I do in my dream world. Vegeta is the only one in dream Michael lets me be with, so anyone else is like, how could you do this to me? And I try to resist being seduced, even though real life Mike says it's okay because it's just a dream, so I end up asking myself, why don't I just do it? I actually like sexual dreams as long as I'm consenting, but when I'm dreaming and confuse it for real life, I want to be loyal to my husband. Even though in real life there would be no question, and it'd be the easiest thing in the world to say no to someone else. I'm against cheating 100%. I've never done it, and it's easy not to do it. My in-dream self is just struggling with my real-life sexual frustration. This shit is crazy. My dreams being continuations of each other is crazy. Everything I just explained, it didn't happen in one dream. The carnival was one dream, the party was another, and several dreams were me fighting with myself of whether I should go see him or not. I met Dib at the carnival almost a year ago. I'm living a second life. Everything is connected. We even call back to prior events, especially when I'm trying to do Vegeta's Gallic gun. I can't remember the hand positions. He's pissed because my Kamehameha wave is flawless. Anyway, yeah, I tried to make this version of Dib in The Sims 4. It's close, but it doesn't quite do him justice. And also, his hair is a tiny bit longer. And that's it. So, a little recap on him. And I'll mention this in a later journal of the end of the world, or the end of existence, or whatever. But, I think Dib moved away. And I haven't seen him since. And it was because near the end there, it felt like he was developing empathy toward me. He was starting to care about me, even though he denied it. And so he up and left. And his house, and garden and that entire grassy area was, removed and oh god, what are the words I'm trying to say? Like a bulldozer came up and flattened everything. I don't know what it's become since then. I think I've been avoiding the area even though it's really close to Hogwarts. And I go to Hogwarts, and this Hogwarts is not like canon Hogwarts. It's something I'm probably going to have to elaborate on too. So anyway, that was alternate universe Dib, who I actually had been trying really hard to keep myself from being addicted to him, but it was Stockholm Syndrome. And after he left, it's just like, okay, I'm free, I guess. So I miss some things with him, but overall I think it's best that he left. Anyway, if you like this, or you like my dream journals in general, leave a like, spread the word of awesome, spread the word of awesome, become a Reitannite, and don't forget to click the little bell. I shall see you later, alligators and crocodiles and stuff. Goodbye.